There is a study that followed more than 140,000 adults across 17 countries, and what researchers found surprised even the scientists running it. A single, simple measurement predicted a person's risk of dying or suffering a major cardiovascular event more strongly than blood pressure itself, one of the most closely watched numbers in all of medicine. That measurement did not require a single needle, a scan, or a laboratory. It simply required a handshake. Today, I want to walk you through 7 things researchers have identified as genuine predictors of how long a person is likely to live after 70. None of them mystical, none of them requiring a lab coat to understand. All of them things you can notice, and in many cases actually improve, starting this week. I want to be clear about something before we begin, because I think it matters more than any single fact I am about to share. None of these 7 measures were discovered by asking people about their diet, their supplements, or any particular product marketed toward longevity. Every one of them comes from researchers simply observing large groups of real people over many years, measuring something ordinary and physical, and then tracking, honestly and carefully, who remained healthy and who did not. That is precisely what makes this list so trustworthy and so worth your genuine attention today. The first predictor, the one I just mentioned, is grip strength, and I want you to understand exactly why something as simple as the strength in your hand carries so much weight in this kind of research. In that same large international study, known as the PURE study, grip strength predicted mortality and cardiovascular events more powerfully than systolic blood pressure, a number doctors monitor constantly and adjust medications around regularly. A separate analysis pooling data from over 3 million participants across dozens of studies found that for every small decrease in grip strength, the risk of death from any cause rose measurably, a relationship researchers describe as remarkably consistent across different populations and different countries entirely. Why does something as simple as grip strength matter so much? Researchers believe it functions as a kind of window into your body's overall condition, reflecting not just the muscles in your hand and forearm, but broader indicators of nutrition, inflammation, and the general health of your muscular and nervous systems working together. A weak grip often signals that a body's overall reserve, its capacity to withstand illness, surgery, or injury, has genuinely declined. If you want a rough sense of where you stand, something surprisingly simple works well. Squeeze a rolled towel, a stress ball, or even someone else's hand as firmly as you comfortably can. If that squeeze feels noticeably weaker than it did even a year or 2 ago, this is worth mentioning to your doctor and worth actively working to improve, since research shows that resistance training, even gentle, consistent efforts with light weights or resistance bands, can measurably rebuild grip strength at any age, including well into your 80s. What makes this particular finding so remarkable to researchers is that the protective effect of grip strength appears to hold up even independently of cardiovascular fitness itself. One recent study following women over 8 years found that those in the strongest quarter for grip strength had a full 33% lower mortality rate than those in the weakest quarter, and this difference remained significant even after accounting for age, body weight, existing health conditions, physical activity levels, and inflammation markers in the blood. In other words, grip strength was not simply standing in for a person's general fitness level. It appeared to carry genuine, independent predictive value entirely its own, which is precisely why researchers now consider it one of the single most useful, low-cost health measurements available to anyone, requiring nothing more sophisticated than a simple hand dynamometer, a small device many physical therapy offices and even some pharmacies now keep on hand specifically for this purpose. The second predictor is walking speed, sometimes called gait speed by researchers, and it has earned a nickname within the medical community that tells you exactly how seriously it is taken. Many geriatric researchers now refer to walking speed as the sixth vital sign, placed right alongside blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, breathing rate, and oxygen levels, precisely because it predicts so much about a person's overall health trajectory. Multiple studies using data from tens of thousands of older adults have found that walking speed reliably predicts disability, hospitalization, and mortality, sometimes more accurately than a person's actual chronological age. The measurement itself is refreshingly simple. Researchers typically time how long it takes someone to walk a short, measured distance at their normal, comfortable pace, then calculate their speed in meters per second. Generally speaking, a walking speed below roughly 0.8 meters per second, which works out to a fairly leisurely stroll covering less than 3 feet each second, has been associated with meaningfully higher risk in numerous studies, while a brisker, more confident pace tends to track with considerably better outcomes. You do not need any special equipment to get a rough sense of your own pace. Time yourself. Walking a familiar hallway or a measured section of sidewalk at your normal speed, and pay attention to whether that pace has slowed noticeably over the past year or two, since a genuine, gradual slowing deserves real attention, while walking speed itself, encouragingly, tends to respond well to regular movement and strength training. Large studies tracking older adults over many years have consistently found that walking speed adds real predictive value even beyond what a person's medical chart alone would suggest, capturing something about overall physical function that blood tests and scans do not fully reveal. Researchers following thousands of community-dwelling adults have identified distinct patterns over time, some people maintaining a steady, stable pace for years, others gradually worsening, and a smaller group actually improving their walking speed over time, typically those who remained consistently active or began new exercise habits later in life. This tells us something genuinely hopeful, that this particular trajectory is not fixed the moment you turn 70, but remains, for most people, meaningfully within your own influence. The third predictor is something researchers call the chair stand test, and I suspect nearly everyone watching this can try it themselves within the next few minutes. It involves rising from a seated position, without using your arms or hands for support, as many times as you comfortably can within 30 seconds, or alternatively, timing how quickly you can complete 5 full stands in a row. A recent study following women over the course of 8 years found that those who completed 5 chair stands fastest had a 34% lower mortality rate compared to those who were slowest, a difference that held up even after researchers accounted for body weight, existing health conditions, and overall physical activity levels. This particular test matters because it measures something grip strength alone cannot: the power and coordination of your legs and core working together, precisely the muscles that keep you steady on your feet, capable of climbing stairs, and able to catch yourself if you begin to stumble. Try it yourself right now if you're able, rising from a firm chair without pushing off with your hands. If this feels genuinely difficult, or requires several attempts and considerable effort, this is valuable information, not simply about your legs, but about your overall physical resilience. And it is a capability that responds remarkably well to consistent practice, often improving noticeably within just a few weeks of regular effort. The fourth predictor is balance, something most people never think to test formally until a fall has already occurred, though researchers have found it carries genuine predictive value all on its own. A commonly used assessment asks a person to stand on one leg, without support, and researchers track how long that balance can be comfortably maintained. Studies following large groups of older adults have found that an inability to maintain single-leg balance for at least 10 seconds is associated with meaningfully higher mortality risk over the following years, likely because balance itself depends on so many interconnected systems working properly together: your inner ear, your vision, your muscles, and your nervous system, all coordinating in ways that decline gradually as overall health declines. I want to encourage you to try this gently and safely. Standing near a wall or sturdy countertop, you can reach immediately if needed, simply lifting one foot slightly off the ground and seeing how long you can hold that position comfortably. This is not about testing yourself harshly or risking a fall in the process of testing your risk of one. It is simply useful information, and like the chair stand test, balance genuinely improves with regular, gentle practice. Whether through a formal practice like Tai Chi, which we have discussed in another conversation here, or simply through consistent, careful daily practice of this exact exercise near something sturdy to hold on to. The fifth predictor moves away from the purely physical and into cognitive function, your memory, your ability to concentrate, and your overall mental sharpness. Long-term studies following aging populations have found that cognitive function, measured through simple assessments of memory and attention, adds genuine predictive value when combined with physical measurements like grip strength and walking speed, helping researchers understand not just how long someone is likely to live, but how well they are likely to live during those remaining years. Cognitive decline, particularly when it happens more rapidly than typical aging would predict, often signals broader changes happening throughout the body, not simply within the brain alone. This does not mean an occasional forgotten name or misplaced set of keys carries any serious meaning, since this happens to nearly everyone as the years accumulate. What matters more is a genuine, noticeable trajectory, comparing your own memory and mental clarity now to where it stood several years ago, and noticing whether that decline feels proportionate to ordinary aging or considerably steeper than that. Engaging your mind actively, through the kind of continued learning we discussed in an earlier conversation here at Golden Wisdom, appears to offer genuine protective value, alongside the physical measures we have already covered, since a body and mind that remain actively engaged together tend to support one another considerably better than either one working in isolation. The sixth predictor surprises many people because it has nothing to do with the body at all, and everything to do with your relationships. Loneliness and social isolation have been studied extensively as predictors of mortality in older adults, with some research suggesting the health impact of chronic loneliness rivals more commonly recognized risk factors like smoking or physical inactivity. Genuine social connection, regular, meaningful contact with friends, family, and community appears to function almost like a protective buffer, reducing stress hormones, supporting immune function, and in ways researchers are still working to fully understand, genuinely extending both the length and quality of a person's remaining years. If you find your own social circle has grown smaller in recent years, whether through the loss of a spouse, friends moving away, or simply the natural narrowing that can happen with age, I want to encourage you to treat rebuilding genuine connection with the same seriousness you might treat a doctor's recommendation about diet or exercise, because the research increasingly suggests it deserves exactly that level of priority. This might mean reaching out to an old friend, joining a group at a senior center, or simply asking a family member directly for more regular contact, rather than waiting for connection to arrive on its own. What makes this particular predictor especially compelling to researchers is how consistently it appears across studies conducted in entirely different countries and cultures, suggesting the underlying mechanism is genuinely biological rather than simply reflecting one particular society's values around family or community. Chronic loneliness appears to elevate stress hormones over time in ways that measurably affect cardiovascular health, immune function, and even the rate at which certain cells throughout the body age. This is precisely why researchers increasingly describe social connection not as a pleasant bonus to a healthy lifestyle, but as a genuine pillar of physical health in its own right, deserving a place alongside diet, movement, and sleep in any serious conversation about longevity after 70. The seventh and final predictor is independence in daily activities, your ability to manage the ordinary tasks of daily life, bathing, dressing, preparing meals, managing your own medications and finances without significant assistance from others. Researchers refer to these as activities of daily living, and a person's ability to manage them independently has been shown repeatedly to predict both mortality and quality of life in the years ahead. This matters because difficulty managing these tasks often reflects the cumulative effect of everything else we have discussed today: declining strength, slower walking speed, reduced balance, and sometimes cognitive changes as well, all converging into a single, practical measure of how well a person is truly functioning in their daily life. If you have noticed a genuine decline in your ability to manage these everyday tasks independently, I want to encourage you to view this not as a private embarrassment to hide, but as valuable information worth discussing openly with your doctor, since many of the underlying causes, whether related to strength, balance, medication side effects, or something else entirely, respond well to proper attention and intervention once they are identified clearly. Now, having walked through all 7 of these predictors together: grip strength, walking speed, the chair stand test, balance, cognitive function, social connection, and independence in daily activities, I want to say something important about how to hold this information. None of these 7 things function as a fortune teller, predicting some fixed, unchangeable date with absolute certainty. What they genuinely represent, according to the research, is a snapshot of your body's current resilience, and encouragingly, nearly every single one of these 7 measures responds meaningfully to consistent, deliberate effort, regardless of your current age. Grip strength improves with resistance training. Walking speed improves with regular movement. Balance improves with practice. Cognitive engagement improves with continued learning. Social connection improves with deliberate effort to reach out. And independence in daily living often improves considerably once underlying issues are properly identified and addressed. I want to close with this. The true value of understanding these 7 predictors is not simply knowing where you currently stand, but recognizing how much genuine influence you still hold over each and every one of them, at 70, at 80, and well beyond. Test yourself honestly today: the handshake, the chair stand, the balance check, and rather than treating whatever you discover as a fixed verdict, treat it as a genuine, actionable starting point, one that decades of careful research suggests you have real power to improve, one consistent effort at a time. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this gave you something practical to try this week, I hope you will share it with someone else who might benefit from understanding these same 7 measures. Stay with us here at Golden Wisdom, and I will see you in the next one.